Prepare yourself for the terror. The prison of madness, where few enter and none return.
Welcome to Unsung Horrors. With Lance. And Erica.
Leave all your sanity behind. It can't help you now.
Welcome to another episode of Unsung Horrors, the podcast where we discuss underseen horror films, specifically those with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica.
And for this episode, we're going to be chatting about Death Car on the Freeway.
Oh, yes.
From 1979, a CBS Tuesday night made-for-TV movie.
Tonight, on the CBS Tuesday Night Movie, they call him the Fiddler. His targets, women, alone. He's the Death Car on the Freeway. Shelley Hack is the young newscaster who tries to stop him.
You need me.
George Hamilton, her ex-husband.
You are scared to death. I might just make it on my own.
With Peter Graves, Dinah Shore, and Abe Vigoda in an explosive story of women in jeopardy.
The Freeway Fiddler has killed 9 women and will surely kill again.
Death Car on the Freeway.
It originally aired September 25th, 1979, directed by the great stuntman-turned-director Hal Needham.
No pants.
No pants episode. I mean, he's going to be just as much fun talking about than the movie itself.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun episode because I feel like, we skirt the line on horror quite often.
Yeah.
It's got the horror tag on it, but, we have the chance here to talk about someone like Hal Needham.
And Burt Reynolds and everybody by association.
Yeah. And so obviously we will talk about the movie, but I think there's a lot to talk about with Hal Needham and just that whole, I would just want to talk about how hot he is. My God.
He's a good looking man. And I'm surprised he wasn't more of an actor because he reminded me of like a tough guy, Christopher George. Like he has he's very gruff. He's but he's so quick wit and he has a good part in Death Car.
Oh, yeah.
He has a nice little cameo.
Yeah, he does. And I was like, God damn, what I wouldn't give to take that course.
Yeah, defensive driving instructor. He's perfect for it.
Yeah, I'd let my guard down with him, though.
Yeah. Okay. Put your pants back on over there.
Sorry,
Jesus.
it's not going to happen.
Okay, yeah, Death Car. It has 366 views on Letterboxd at the time of this recording. You can find it on YouTube without or with commercials, the way it was originally aired.
Yep.
So what's it about? It's about a young, ambitious reporter named Jan Clausen, who takes on and investigates a story about a madman who's driving on a van on the LA freeway, and he's targeting women who are driving alone. When he spots his next victim, sometimes he rubs down his steering wheel with a Clorox wipe. Mm-hmm. He puts on his black gloves, pops in an 8-track of this crazy fiddle bluegrass music, and he puts the pedal to the metal, causing wrecks, hoping to kill the drivers, which he succeeds at, killing about a dozen women on the road. And as Jan gets closer to figuring out who this unknown driver is, she is his next target. Dun, dun, dun. So, yeah, like you said, this doesn't have a horror. It has the horror genre tag, but it's a made-for-TV movie, so it has that it's more tame. There's not a lot of graphic gore, more crime thriller than anything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It's eligible.
Yes.
So Hal Needham, yeah, if anybody's familiar with his name and his filmography, you're going to get great stunt work and a lot of explosions, which we get in Death Car. He started his career as a stuntman in the mid to late 50s, training under John Wayne's stunt double, and he quickly became one of the top, if not the top stuntman in Hollywood, regularly doubling for Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds, of course, who we're going to talk a lot about here in a bit. Because Hal and Burt Reynolds were best friends. They were best buds. Hal lived in Burt's house for 12 years in his guest home. And there are some stories of this being like the ultimate bachelor pad. Both guys were single during the time. Burt loved to He had mirrors all over walls and ceilings in his home. He was a big fan of tile. That was a great passion of his. He mentioned in a documentary.
I watched that too. I was like, man really likes tile.
Yeah, he was mirrors and tile, and apparently a big fan of Native American culture as well. But yeah, apparently there were some wild times had in there. 12 years of just probably a lot of shagging, if I would say. There is a scene in the documentary where I thought he had like a grass in his house.
Oh my God. Yeah. The one with like the big open. Yeah.
And I was like, that's a fucking 4-inch shag carpet. Like somebody needs to take a lawnmower to it. Yeah, no, I do want to read his book. So Hal Needham had a book published in 2011 called Stuntman, My Car Crashing, Plane Jumping, Bone Breaking, Death Defying Hollywood Life. Which you read some of.
I just got it 2 days ago and I started it and I will probably finish it. But, we had marathon day yesterday and so I couldn't quite get through a lot of it. But I do want to share one fun anecdote that he wrote about in it. Unfortunately, he did not write about this movie at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the whole. I mean, I wanted to read the book anyway.
Right.
I knew who he was, but I became, because of Smokey and the Bandit and all of that. I became much more aware of him after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out.
Right.
And like that whole relationship. So anyway, he didn't write anything about this movie, which I was really disappointed. But the book is really fun to read, and he wrote about this one time where they were on location in Mexico, and one of the actors I think that you and I both really enjoy was on the film, Richard Farnsworth.
Oh, yes.
So there was a scene where Farnsworth, his character, was supposed to be shooting at people during a fight or during a battle with arrows. And they were using like real fucking arrows. Like, so they weren't messing around with this. So context for that. All right. Next, the director wanted some of the stuntmen to be shot with arrows to motivate their high falls. We had a stuntman on the movie named Richard Farnsworth. Oh, I guess he wasn't like acting in it at the time, but he was a stuntman. But anyway, he was also an amateur archer. Let's see. Dick was asked how he felt about shooting arrows at the stuntman with the camera rolling. He said he was willing to shoot the arrows, but he added it would be a good idea to ask the stuntman if they were willing to let him shoot at them. After all, forget movie magic and fakery. Instead of the usual rubber tips, they were going to be real hunting arrows with steel tips. Several of us had seen Dick shoot and decided to give it a go. We would wear a foot square metal plate covered with 2 inches of balsa wood under the front of our costumes and hope Dick hit the target. On Sunday, the day before we would put our lives in Dick's hands, we were on the beach body surfing and enjoying the sight of bikini-clad locals parading up and down the sand. Not far from us, Dick had set up an archery target with a foot square target on it, the same size he would be hitting when shooting at us. Dick practiced for a couple of hours. About half of his arrows hit the target. The other half always seemed to be 4 or 5 inches lower, which would hit our crotch area. The more he missed, the closer we watched. After far too many misses, we had to talk with him and suggested that maybe this whole thing was a bad idea. He laughed, picked up his bow, and fired 20 arrows dead center into the target. We looked at one another and knew we'd been had. Dick gathered up his equipment and said, "I'll see you tomorrow."
That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't know Richard Farnsworth used to be a stuntman.
I didn't either. I mean, you look at him like in The Straight Story or something. In his older roles, obviously, he's a frail guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that.
I bet he could get it too.
I bet he could get it too. I'm sure. I bet he had some parties at that bachelor pad with Bert and Hal.
Mm-hmm.
So a little history on Hal. So he did stunt work forever. And he wanted to get out of stunt work mainly because of like the physical injuries. At least physically doing the stunt work himself. He wanted to be kind of an actor, but he wanted to be a director as well.
Yeah.
So he began writing the script for Smokey and the Bandit, and Universal Pictures were hesitant to let a stuntman direct his first movie. So they said they'd make the movie if he can get his roomie to star in it. Obviously, Burt Reynolds was a huge celebrity at that point with Deliverance, The Longest Yard, White Lightning, and he agreed only if Hal could direct. So Burt is the reason Hal Needham became a director, and a successful one, in my opinion, a very successful one. And especially for Universal, because Smokey and the Bandit was like one of the biggest hits for Universal at that time, breaking all sorts of records.
Yeah, it was like the second highest grossing film of 1977 behind Star Wars.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so of course, and this kind of kicked off his directing career, and of course, they're all action-packed, a lot of stunt work, because that's what his career was. So a lot of the same stuff. He did say, Hal said he always wanted to do action comedies. He felt laughter was contagious and that people enjoyed watching action, not violence, but action.
Yeah.
Which is the case for Smokey the Bandit movies, because there are like these crazy car wrecks where in real life, nobody would survive.
Right.
But he always shows like the passengers and the drivers getting out, which is, it makes it very endearing. It adds to the humor too.
Yeah.
Most of them are cops too. I'm like, just show them die. But whatever. But yeah, I mean, we talked about Richard Farnsworth, what I didn't know about, but I'm a huge fan of stuntmen-turned-directors. I've talked about Spiro Rosados for Class of 1999 too.
Right. The
Substitute. And another director we covered on an episode, Bob Browder for Midnight Ride.
Right.
So I'd love to see it happen, especially because stuntmen, they don't get the credit that they deserve. Even in Letterboxd, they just recently added them to the crew list in the app and on the site.
Yeah, I think Needham doesn't even have he doesn't have a proper Oscar. He has an honorary one.
Right, a governor's award that he got in like 2012, which, better late than never. Good on the Academy for that, because he did pass away a year later, so that was good to see. But yeah, I feel like the fact that stunt work isn't an Oscar category is dumb, because the Olympics just added breakdancing as a fucking sport.
That.
I mean, if they can add breakdancing, come on, Academy, you could add stunt work.
This is just another reason why the Oscars are stupid and are bullshit.
It is.
I never watch. I don't fucking care. I'm like, you're not nominating all the movies that I care about anyway. So you're not nominating the people who deserve the most credit. So
no, I agree. I do. I watch them every year, though. I do have a lot of fun. I do love award season.
Okay.
I don't agree. I never agree. I'm usually, throwing edibles at the screen.
You're hate watching.
I am hate watching for the most part. Some of the stuff I like, and like you said, the pickings are slim when it comes to Best Picture nominees, but I do pick a favorite that I might have seen and hope for that. But like when Parasite won, that was a good time.
Sure.
Anyways, let's fuck the Academy. Let's get back to Unsung Horrors.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the Hal Needham films we watched, because we did jump into his filmography.
I did a lot because honestly, I had never seen Smokey and the Bandit.
Really?
It was one of those where I was like, I'm going to get around to it. I have my private list on Letterboxd of all of these classic films that I have yet to see. Most of them are from like early 30s and 40s for the most part. But like, I have some classic films that I'm like, I'm saving them. I'm spreading them out, because I've said many times on this podcast about, my anxiety about my own death, and like, I have to think about like how many good years of movie watching I have left. And I don't want to go through all of them right away. And then my last 10 or 20 years, I'm just watching like the fucking dregs of Tubi. So like, I'm trying to spread them out. And I was like, okay, when the opportunity presents itself for me to get to one of these classics, then I'll do it. And this was the perfect opportunity for me to do that. I watched Smokey and the Bandit. It was so much fun. Yes. I followed it up by watching The Bandit, the documentary about it. I watched Cannonball Run. This one wasn't high on my list to get around to. I didn't love it.
I don't know. I may have seen it as a kid, but I don't think I've ever seen any of the Cannonball Run film. And I think there's like 3 of them or something.
Yeah. It was fun. I really wanted to like it, but it was fun, but I was like, I'm never going to revisit this again. I will definitely watch Smokey and the Bandit again. Like, that was a lot of fun. Rad, I hadn't seen since I was a kid.
Yeah, I probably haven't seen it in 35 years.
Yeah, I didn't remember it that well, except as soon as Crew showed up, I was like, oh, I remember him, because I remember having a crush on him.
Crew, I like it. That's good.
No, it's not.
Pull that.
You need to, we need like the fucking that was terrible. So I started The Villain. I didn't finish it. I was like,
with Kirk Douglas?
Yeah. I was like, I'm not in the mood for this. I watched Hard Time Hostage Hotel on Prime. That one had a lot of names like Daniel Harris, Keith Carradine, Charles Durning, but just a completely forgettable hostage movie. No notable stunts. I feel like there was some CGI fire in there, and I was like, how dare you?
Wow. That's with Burt Reynolds. That's a sequel to a Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, there's like a
directed
series of the I'm assuming this is just a paycheck or a favor for Reynolds. I don't know what it was, but I will say though that my favorite watch out of all of the ones I did for Hal Needham directed, besides Death Car, Hooper.
Yeah, that's my favorite Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds performance.
It's so fun,
and it's kind of autobiographical if you think about it.
It is.
Being this old stuntman.
Yeah. It's just like a fun stuntman hangout movie. Needham is all over this. And like before we watched it, John was like, oh, what are we watching? I was like, oh, it's called Hooper. And he was like, Hooper. And I was like, Hooper. And like we were doing like the Jaws Quint thing. I couldn't help it. Now I can't not hear it. So
that's good.
Stop playing with yourself, Hooper. Hooper. Hooper!
But yeah, that was definitely my favorite watch out of his filmography.
Yeah, I loved Hooper. I'd watched that a couple of years ago. And yeah, and this is also a fun episode for me. I'd watch some older movies that I'd never seen of Needham's, including Smokey the Bandit Part 2, which I feel like I've seen bits and pieces of.
Yeah, I didn't get to that one.
And Sarah never wants to watch any movies that I'm prepping for the podcast, ever. And it's understandable. I mean, hell, I don't want to watch half of them. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. But she loves Burt Reynolds. She loves all the Smokey and the Bandit. She loves Gator, White Lightning, she loves it. And she was all in. So we watched that. And it's not, obviously it doesn't have the level of charm that the original has.
Yeah.
Instead of like hauling Coors, they're hauling Charlotte the elephant. This elephant that they have to take over across state lines.
So double feature with Hannibal Brooks.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good call. But Dom
Triple feature with Operation Dumbo Drop.
Yeah. Anything you could throw with Oliver Reed in there.
Yeah.
Just watch it. But yeah, it has Dom DeLuise in it as a doctor turned veterinarian. He's kind of kidnapped to take care of Charlotte in the back of the bandit's truck.
Okay.
And I mean, he's super over the top, very campy. It's funny until it isn't. It's like, I get it. But a lot of the same cast members pop up: Paul Williams, Pat McCormick, Jackie Gleason, who I think is what makes Smokey and the Bandit 2 watchable.
Okay.
Like the reason to watch it. I think that character is one of the best. And in the documentary, The Bandit, it sounds like it's never really, they don't get too much into it, but it sounds like Burt Reynolds wanted the script rewritten because he didn't want to be upstaged by Jackie Gleason.
Yeah. I think they only had one scene together.
At the bar, yeah.
Yeah, at the bar. And even at the very end, sorry, a little spoil, not really spoilery. At the very end when he's in his car and like they're right behind him in the red convertible and he's like, "Oh, I can't lie to you. We're right behind you." And I'm like, technically, they might not even be in the same scene again there. Like, that could be some kind of, like, camera trick. So, yeah.
Yeah, Jackie, I love Buford T. Justice. He is one of the funniest characters to me. And he's great in Smokey and the Bandit 2. Great stunt work, of course. I mean, it's not on the level of Part 1, but you got to watch it. You should watch it at some point.
Okay. I'll get to it.
I did watch a movie that Hal Needham directed called Body Slam from 1986. And I was kind of excited about this one because Needham being in stunt work, I felt like this could be a good fit for a wrestling movie, which stars one of the most famous wrestlers at that time, Roddy Piper.
That's your boy.
He's my boy. And this was his first major role.
Oh, okay.
He had a small uncredited role before this in a terrible wrestling movie called The One and Only, directed by Carl Reiner, starring Henry Winkler from 1978.
Oh, okay.
Terrible movie. Sadly, Body Slam is also terrible.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. You can't win them all.
You can't. I mean, I took a step back. Pretty much any and all praise I had was because this is Roddy Piper's first acting credit, his real one. And that kind of kicked off his career, which he was destined to be in movies no matter what. But and in Needham's defense, I read that the producers didn't see eye to eye on him with how he wanted the movie to turn out. Yeah. So the end product is very poorly edited. There's added voiceovers, which is terrible. There's a band called Kick who wrote and played original songs.
Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah. So, okay. So Body Slam, they have a big role in the film. All right. So Body Slam, it's about a music manager named Harry Smilak, played by Dirk Benedict, who he's losing his musical, like his clients. He only does music. So he accidentally gets into wrestling and starts representing these wrestlers. But the kick scenes, so he kind of starts kind of integrating music. They take a tour on the road and he integrates musical acts, the kick, with wrestling. So there's some fun scenes of Roddy fighting and stuff. The soundtrack is not bad. I actually own it on vinyl. Like when I started watching it, I was all, do I have Body Slam on? And I checked it out, and great cover art, awesome illustrated cover. And most of the songs are from the kick that were written for this song or for this film. Not a bad soundtrack. Check it out. I think I got it for like $4 at a record show, mainly because of cover.
Yeah.
But it also has like classic wrestlers. Captain Lou Albano is in it. Ric Flair, Classy Freddie Blassie. You know all these people I'm talking about, Erica, right?
Woo!
Bruno Sammartino, the Tonga Kid. I think fans of WWF will definitely enjoy this more than anybody else.
Okay.
But it's still just a bad movie.
Okay.
And of course, we already talked about The Bandit, which I also watched. The documentary from 2016 directed by Jesse Moss. And yeah, I thought it had a great insight into Bert and Hal's relationship. I read some reviews where it's like, just read Hal's book, but
yeah.
I think just throwing this on for an hour and a half or whatever, it's super interesting documentary.
Yeah.
I do want to, like I said, I want to pick up that book, or may have to borrow it from you.
Yeah.
And I also checked on eBay because I want to pick up the Hal Needham stuntman toy.
Okay, yeah. And you have to get the Western movie play set to go along with
that
it.
One's tough to find. I did look on eBay, and they mostly have, it's just like the individual figure.
Yeah.
Some of them did have that play set with the breaking balcony and stuff. Oh, all over $100 each of them. But one day I will have that play set.
It's an exciting new Gabriel toy called the Stuntman. And he is the first real action character because he's got a unique, fully jointed, reflex action body. That means he can tuck and roll like a real stuntman and do a lot of other things that no other action figure's ever done before. And when you put him on his special air ram launcher, he can dive, tuck and roll, and do all kinds of wild Western stunts. Of course, the little fella ought to be good. Hal Needham personally helped design him and the entire set from top to bottom. Hal Needham, the stuntman, one of the greatest of Gabriel's great entertainers. Look at him tuck and roll, just like a pro.
How cool is that? Like a stuntman gets his own action figure. It's the stuntman with air ram launcher, tumbling, rolling, leaping, flying. The action figure that really reacts.
I love it. Yeah, a few other things that I found interesting from the doc was that Hal was the first human to test the airbag, becoming the first live dummy.
Crash dummy, yeah.
So he went to California to become a stuntman after leaving the military. I mentioned this because I loved the line in the doc because he's interviewed. He speaks a lot. It's great to hear from him. But he says a great line that he says, quote, "I headed west till my hat floats." I love that.
Mm-hmm.
He created Stunts Unlimited, putting together a group of the best stuntmen and women where he completely innovated stunt work for film, saying, if you can put a man on the moon, you sure as hell can figure out how to do any stunt. And this wasn't in the doc. I'm wondering if it's in the book. Probably not, because you said Death Car's not in the book.
It's not in there, no.
But after Death Car on the Freeway, he directed another TV movie/pilot in 1980 called Stunts Unlimited, about a group of Hollywood stunt performers who are recruited by former U.S. intelligence to retrieve a stolen laser from a notorious arms dealer.
I know. So I searched high and low. I searched legal adjacent. I messaged David and Amanda. I was like, do y'all have this? I know you guys got like a massive like TV movie library. Nope, they didn't have it. I went on the Stunts Unlimited website. And I was like,
"Oh, that's still active. That's still going on."
Oh, no, someone's not updating. Like they're not tech savvy. So I was like, maybe send them a message there. But like, yeah, I sent a message in Sam Deegan's Discord because like they have a legal adjacent channel, and I was like, hey, any line on this? Crickets. I'm like, fuck.
Damn. Yeah, I looked for it too. Not as hard as you did, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds like it could be his like hidden masterpiece or something.
I think so, yeah. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I hope that one resurfaces at some point.
Yeah, I do too. Same. Yeah, and another few things from The Bandit, which is, it covers Needham's career and a lot of Burt Reynolds' career. It's mostly about the making of Smokey and the Bandit. but I had a lot of fun learning how they picked Fred the Basset Hound from Smokey and the Bandit.
The dog contest.
Yeah, like open to the public where they were shooting, and Burt Reynolds was like the judge.
Yeah.
There's Jerry Reed's co-star.
Yeah.
And I love hearing all the stories of how much of a sweetheart Jerry Reed is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Needham also directed 4 TV movies for a limited series called Bandit for Universal, which was a 1994 reboot of the Smokey and the Bandit, starring a young Brian Bloom in the Bo character. I looked at some of these films. I didn't watch any, but he has a different love interest in each episode, which included Elizabeth Berkley, Kathy Ireland, and Tracy Lords.
Oh.
So maybe one day I think they're each about an hour and a half long.
Mm-hmm.
Bandit marathon.
There you go.
For a fun and / terrible time. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably keep talking about Hal Needham, but I think he's an amazing guy. I mean, like I said, stuntman-turned-director. It's a fascinating career for any stuntman.
Yeah.
But his is amazing. And more fun facts that I pulled from when I was, looking up his book online. He was in 310 movies. He broke 56 bones, including his back twice, punctured a lung, busted out a couple teeth. And like you mentioned, he was the inspiration for Brad Pitt's Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time. I guess the whole relationship, Cliff Booth and Rick Dalton, that was based on Hal and Burt. And like I said, he passed away in 2013 at 82. So again, better late than never. I'm glad that the Oscars recognized him. The Academy did. But come on, guys, get stunt work category added. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's make the Oscars that much more unbearable for Erica to watch.
To not watch.
I'll
watch that one category.
Even if they do add it, don't they do a lot of categories off screen the day before? Just do that. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Anyways. Okay, other crew members. Cinematography is by Bobby Byrne, who worked on most of Needham's best films, which we've already mentioned, Smokey and the Bandit, Hooper. He also shot Needham's The Villain, which starred Kirk Douglas and Margaret and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm. So something I learned from the book, Needham actually passed on Conan the Barbarian.
Really?
Yeah. Schwarzenegger handed him the script and Needham read it and he was like, yeah, I don't get it. But it's fine. I am not like...
It would have been a different movie.
It would have been a totally different movie. I love Conan. So no, I didn't need that movie in my life. I'm glad John Milius got it. That's how it should have been. But
that's interesting.
He was like, yeah, I read it. And I was like, no, not for me. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That's not your era. You know what's best in your life.
Yeah, there's no car chases in Conan. Yeah. So I think it's a wise decision. Cinematographer Byrne also shot Paul Schrader's Blue Collar, which rules.
Yeah. That movie is amazing.
Yeah. He did 16 Candles. He shot John Hughes' 16 Candles and Ron Shelton's baseball film, Bull Durham.
Your baseball movie.
Go Astros. Okay, there's one writing credit for Death Car, and that's William Wood, who he's written some interesting screenplays. Mm-hmm. One that I briefly talked about during our Fear No Evil episode, directed by Paul Windkos, and that is Haunt of the Very Rich from 1972.
Yeah.
Which I think I said it was executed a little poorly, but the script was awesome, which is what I remember it being. And I know you watched some of Wood's stuff recently.
Yeah. I'd seen one previously, The City Killer from 1984. It's a TV movie with Heather Locklear. It was fine. I gave it 2.5. I remember it vaguely. Savages from 1974. John and I watched this just last month or so, I think, and before you made your pick. So fortuitous, but this one's really good. It's got Timothy Bottoms and Andy Griffith in it. And basically Timothy Bottoms takes Andy Griffith out into the desert to go hunting. And Andy Griffith accidentally shoots somebody and then he tries to cover it up. And then Timothy Bottoms has to try to escape from him. And it's basically he's just, I don't want to spoil the rest of it, but Andy Griffith, when he's mean, it's kind of frightening.
Yeah. He's the face in the crowd, right? Yeah. He's great.
That movie is, oh my God.
I love that movie.
I
saw a double feature of that with the network at Paramount for their summer classics years and years ago.
Yeah, I loved it, but I was like, I don't know if I can ever watch it again, just because the noise, he's hey, and just oh my God, just it was a lot. But one new one I did watch just specifically for this, he wrote a movie called Victims from 1982, which is the same director as A Cold Night's Death, and has a score by Lalo Schifrin.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
I know. So I went into this with pretty high expectations. This is on Archive. There's a lot of people. So if you read reviews, don't, because not for spoilers, but because a lot of people are getting this movie mixed up with another 1982 movie called Victims. That's a video nasty.
Oh.
And so they don't know how to letterbox properly.
Right.
This is not that movie. This is a pretty boring rape revenge genre with a frustrating ending. And that's what this is. So it's fine. It's a guy, a rapist gets off on a technicality, and like all the women are like kind of keeping tabs on him. And it just, and then the end, I just was really frustrated with it. I was like, that's fine, whatever. But yeah, I think out of all the other films that Wood has written, I really enjoyed Savages the most.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it has that kind of iconic. I don't know if it's iconic, but that poster. It's something that kind of really stands out.
It looks a lot like the poster for The Farmer, like the really close up face and kind of like the reflection, the glasses.
Aviators, yeah. Okay, I have a few more crew members here. Craig R. Baxley. He's credited with additional directing for Death Car. And he's another stuntman-turned-director.
Yeah, they had I think 5 people listed for stunts on this film, and like collectively over 600 film credits for all of them. Yeah. And some of them with like some banging ones, like Baxley. His stunt credits include Predator.
Yeah.
Stone Cold.
Well, he directed.
Sorry, yeah, he directed that one. Yeah, and Dark Angel from 1990 with Dolph Lundgren. That one, that movie is fucking great too.
Go Astros! That takes place in Houston.
God.
Yeah, Baxley directed that one too, and he also directed and did stunts in Action Jackson with Carl Weathers.
I'm not the biggest fan of that, but
I just love Carl Weathers. I love seeing him in a role like that.
Yeah.
So it's not the greatest for sure.
No, yeah.
And then lastly, the original score. I have Richard Markowitz, who. Most of his work is for Westerns and made-for-TV movies. He did the score for Monty Hellman's The Shooting in 1966.
Okay.
And he did the Murder, She Wrote television series.
Oh, hell yeah.
There you go. And the score in Death Car is pretty good. It's kind of silly at times. It does some of the boing, the weird kind of, silly sound effects that a lot of made-for-TV movies have.
I mean, the 70s TV movie scores... They've become a sort of like comfort food to me, where it's like they all sound kind of the same, especially the thrillers, and not so much like the drama kind of things. But yeah, I like it just came on, and I was just like,
yeah, it is. It's very kind of soap opera-y, which I always love any type of melodramatic, even when the music's melodramatic.
Yeah,
there is a melody in Death Car that sounds a lot like Bjork's. Is it called yoga song, that state of emergency? It sounds just like the intro.
Right.
Okay. Somebody help me out. Listen to it and tell me if you hear that. If you're a fan of Bjork.
Ryan in our Discord can probably back you up on that.
It's the exact same like melody. I loved it. And it happens a few times, and I started busting out singing it.
There you go.
Like an idiot. And I don't know if Markowitz had anything to do with that Wild Fiddle song. It sounds like that guy strapped to the semi in Fury Road, chasing after Furiosa, even like in the distance. And I feel like that's where George Miller got it. I don't know. Okay, let's jump to the cast real quick. So the lead is Shelley Hack, who plays the reporter Jan Clausen. And she's an actor that I think a lot of people recognize, but probably don't know her name.
Yeah.
Personally, I know her best and love her in The Stepfather.
Yes.
Where she plays Susan, Terry O'Quinn's latest wife, which we just watched at We Love Video.
Yeah.
A couple months ago? Weeks ago?
Last month, I think. Father's Day with June. So yeah, last month.
Oh, last month, yeah.
Yeah.
She's also the mom, Ann Potter, in John Carl Buechler's Troll from 1986. Mm-hmm. She played Kathy Long in Scorsese's The King of Comedy in 1982. And I watched this. I'd seen it a long time ago, but I rewatched it. And she has a lot of scenes in it. She plays Jerry Langford's secretary. Mm-hmm. And she repeatedly has to tell De Niro's Rupert Pupkin that you got to GTFO.
Yeah.
Get out of the station's office. She's real great in it. But I did want to watch something of hers that I had never seen before, and I selected Blind Fear from 1989, directed by Tom Barry.
Yeah.
This movie is from Lance Entertainment, which is the first thing you see on screen. So I was like, okay, obviously it's a 4-star minimum. Right away, I knew I'd like it. But she plays a blind woman who works the phone in this old remote lodge that was recently sold, and it's closing for renovation. And as she's staying the last night, this group of criminals pop up. And earlier in the day, they had held up and stolen cash from like one of those big, armored trucks, and they killed the drivers. So they show up, they kill this old hotel caretaker who's there with Shelley Hack. And basically the whole movie is her sneaking around, hiding from them all night.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes a while for them to realize she's there. She even like tiptoes out the upstairs window and like scales the ledge, blind as a bat.
Okay.
It's as good as it sounds.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. It has those blue, beautiful night, late 80s, early 90s thriller look. All the power goes out during a storm. So I guess it's like you're kind of experiencing what this blind woman's going through.
Mm-hmm.
Kim Coates plays the good-looking psycho of the group.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, he's got the roll down. He's great in it. It also stars Heidi Von Pulaski, who plays Carrie, the girlfriend of one of the Jeremy Irons twins, Elliot, in Dead Ringers.
Yeah.
She's like kind of the badass. She's also, she kind of takes charge of the group while Kim Coates plays the psycho.
Mm-hmm.
And Shelley Hack, though, she only has like a couple dozen lines in it because she's kind of hiding the whole time. You kind of listening in on these killers.
Mm-hmm.
But she plays she does the role extremely well. She plays a badass. She's real powerful. She's basically taking each one of them out, just kicking ass. I recommend it. It takes a bit to move along, but the ending completely surprised me.
Yeah.
Blind Fear blindsided me. That was stupid.
That was bad.
But I did learn. I was looking it up. I was like, okay, who's involved in this movie other than Shelley Hack? Michael Melvoin. He is the composer of one of our favorites, Bloodsucking Pharaohs in Pittsburgh.
Fuck off.
And he is bringing the goods in Blind Fear. He thinks this is a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel because it does have that. There's a lot of scenes where it sounds like Nightmare on Elm Street. Well done. But yeah, Hack also she's done a lot of television series. She played an angel for a season in Charlie's Angel in 1979.
I can see that.
Yeah, she definitely has a look. She was in a Tales from the Crypt episode in 1994 called The Assassin, which feels very similar to Blind Fear. It's Hack. She plays a housewife, and then a group of henchmen break into her house, and they hound her, and she picks them off one by one.
Okay.
She's not blind, but the episode also starred Corey Feldman.
Oh.
Yeah, and he attempts to rape her on a treadmill.
Ew.
It's disturbing. William Sadler reprises his role of the Grim Reaper from Bill and Ted's Excellent or Bogus, or whichever one, but he's in the wraparound with the Crypt Keeper.
Oh shit.
So it's a good episode. It's uncomfortable. Corey Feldman is always kind of cringy, especially in his later roles. But pretty much all of Hack's roles in the last 30 years have come from television.
Yeah, I watched one of her films called The Finishing Touch from 1992. It's a DTV erotic thriller. She plays the ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife of a angry cop. He's like the, doesn't play by the books cop with the angry lieutenant, kind of like very cliched.
Right.
Somebody is killing women and they suspect this video artist of making like snuff films, basically. And so they send Shelley Hack's character in as like undercover, like, find out if it's him kind of thing. And she falls for him and like it becomes a whole thing. And the video artist is played by, I always forget his name. He's a South African actor. He was in The Mummy. He played the Mummy.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember his name either.
Yeah, but he's really good in this. And I liked it. It has the horniest opening credits ever. And I'm not fucking kidding.
So at least watch the credits.
Yeah, if you can. Those are probably on YouTube alone. It's like, hey, you need to rub one out real quick. Here, just watch the credits for this.
Hold on, let me bookmark that. Added to Spank Bank. Terrible. But overall, okay.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it checks all the boxes for that genre, the DTV erotic thriller. So yeah, it's fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I think Shelley Hack is great in this. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about her in just a minute or two more. But first, we have to talk about the very tan George Hamilton. He plays her on and off again ex-husband. I guess they're separated.
Yeah.
Ray Jeffries, who he's also a TV reporter in this. I think everybody knows who George Hamilton is.
Yeah, I didn't watch anything new for him because I was just like, everyone knows who he is, and
yeah, he's not really a lead man. I think he was like in the 50s and 60s. He's like in a lot of television roles, but he's everything I know him from. It's like he pops up as playing himself.
Yeah,
he's just like he's this debonair, like
he's just this sort of like caricature of himself, and like he's never been someone who like I see their name in the credits and I'm like, oh, I want to watch that because he's in it,
right?
You know?
Yeah, no, exactly. So I looked him up because I haven't watched a lot of lead stuff, and he did a lot of made for TV films in the 70s. He starred in Curtis Harrington's The Dead Don't Die, Gordon Hessler's The Strange Possession of Mrs. Oliver, starring Karen Black.
Yeah, that one I really like that one. I forgot he was in that. Well, because Karen Black is so fucking great in that movie.
She's got to steal it.
Yeah, like I barely remembered he was in it. That movie's really great.
Yeah, I need to watch that one. And I'd kind of been on a little John Candy kick recently, and I watched a movie called Once Upon a Crime from 1992, directed by Eugene Levy. I didn't realize Hamilton was in it, but he pops up and he plays this horny Italian like gambler, and his name is Alfonso, and he's looking for a witch woman to scan at this casino. It's terrible, but still funny. Just looking at all the characters' performances alone, it's really well done. But like the script and the plot is completely stupid. It also stars Richard Lewis, which he's like hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have Frank Gorshin, who plays Ralph Chandler. He's like the news director, editor-in-chief here. He's best known as playing the Riddler in the Adam Westbrook Ward Batman television series, obviously from the 60s, which earned him a nomination for an Emmy Award, which I didn't realize that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, another recognizable face. He worked in some feature films, but mainly television work. A lot of variety shows, talk variety shows. Alfie Wise plays the other reporter named Ace Durham, which is a great name. And he's acted in a ton of Needham directed films. Hooper, Cannonball Run, Rad, Stroker Ace.
Yeah.
Pops up a lot.
I feel like he's in my top actors for the year now.
Oh, really?
After this week, I was like, God damn, he's in this one too?
I said I'd never seen the Cannonball Run, but he's credited as Batman in that.
Yeah, he was in one of the pairs, but I don't remember his name being Batman, so I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, it may not even be mentioned.
That's
I don't know.
Yeah. But I do remember seeing him in it because I was like, man, that guy.
He's everywhere. Peter Graves plays Lieutenant Haller, best known as
the biggest woman victim shamer ever.
Yeah, he's terrible. I mean, ACAB. This whole fucking show is all the cops are basically like, hey, women, you kind of deserve what's going.
Yeah, I just checked my letterbox. Alfie Wise is in my top. He's 6. He's number 6 now.
Get him up there.
Yeah.
There's more.
Right in between George Buckflower and Burt Reynolds.
But yeah, Peter Graves, the captain in Airplane. And he's also Jim Phelps in the Mission Impossible television series. Recognizable voice, recognizable face. A lot of good work there. Then lastly, I mean, really this is all the cast we're covering, but I'm sure we'll talk about Hal Needham. Abe Vigoda has a very odd scene when he pops up. But Barbara Rush plays Rosemary, who's the senior news reporter, who's kind of a bitch, but not, I mean, I think this movie's great. One of my favorite things is because all the women are really strong, independent women in this. But yeah, she tells Jan that she needs to wear lip gloss during her reporting segments. But she's acted in a ton of roles in the 50s and 60s. She won a Golden Globe for Most Promising Female Newcomer for her lead role in 1953's It Came from Outer Space.
Oh, I didn't realize that was an award.
Yeah, that must have been, I don't know when the Golden Globes, how long they've been around, but that's probably something that's, been canceled. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Anybody else on the cast you want to talk about?
Nope.
Cool. So let's jump in.
So before we jump into the events of the film, I feel like I need to drop some LA Freeway knowledge.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a little rusty because it's been over 10 years since I lived there. So bear with me, LA folks, but I think I can still speak correctly on most of this. First of all, I am not trying to victim shame or jump on that bandwagon here. There's a lot of it in this movie. But two of the victims in this film are honking at someone to speed up. And you don't do that on the freeway. You're pretty much asking for it if you do that. I'm sorry.
I mean, when you have more than one lane, it does not make sense.
No.
But on the freeway?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
You honk on the freeway when you're about to have an accident or someone's going to hit, or like for cautionary reasons. You don't honk at people to speed up. Like that shit gets you in trouble with the LA driving community. Just don't fucking do it. All right.
Agreed.
Maybe the burned up lady didn't deserve it, but still, she's just saying. Okay. So at the very beginning, there's a close up on the freeway ramp sign for the 405. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's the 405. Just like it's the 5, the 101. It's not 405. It's not 55. You need the on it when talking about LA freeways.
Okay.
I came here and people were like, yeah, take 35. I'm like, take 35 what? Pills? What are you talking about?
Well, we don't call it the 35.
Why?
Because it doesn't sound as cool as the 405. It doesn't.
Okay. Anyway.
California, they name the roads cooler, I guess.
I don't know what it is, but here it was very disconcerting for me when I moved here and there was no the in front of 35. I was like, okay, fine. So the movie says that the freeway fiddler is driving on the Ventura freeway. Right. Now, this can mean two things. It's the 101 freeway, which has a different name depending on what city you're driving through. So it could also be the Hollywood freeway being the 101. But that can be confusing because the 170 is also called the Hollywood freeway. But literally no one calls them by their names. They call them by numbers. So if you're getting a traffic report, it'll be like, yeah, traffic is backed up on the 405, which it always is. That leads me to another point regarding, the whole setup of having the sign of the 405 freeway. There's no fucking way that the traffic is that light on the 405 freeway for any of this to ever happen. So it is reasonable that it is the Ventura freeway if we're talking the 101 once you get outside of LA proper. Now, again, confusing because the 134 freeway is also called the Ventura freeway, but relevant to my point. The viewer made the movie.
This is becoming an episode of the Californians. Did you take the 405?
This is like the Charlie Day sign of like, okay, but this freeway's called this.
I mean, I'm looking at like dry erase boards and like threads and strings just hanging all over this room right now.
I just want to make sure people understand that she's not on the 405 freeway, or none of these women are on the 405 freeway getting stalked because A, the traffic is never that light, and B, like that's just the main thing. Like there's no B. Like the traffic is never that light on the 405 freeway. That's not fucking happening. Like if she's on the Ventura freeway, then it's on the 101, possibly the 134, but I don't think so, outside of LA proper. So like once you get past, I don't know, Thousand Oaks or something like that. So LA people will understand most of that, I feel like, but I do want to let people know that the 405 is the biggest nightmare.
Yeah, a lot of those scenes did take me out because there are, when they're filmed in the car, you see the driver's usually surrounded by traffic, but the aerial shots, it's like there's 3 cars on the road. Yeah. So yeah, I do have to say though, it's nerve wracking to watch because everybody's experienced driving on freeways and busy roads. Nobody likes sitting in traffic, but those scenes of, just merging and trying to switch lanes and get around, it's nerve wracking. I was like kind of tense during those scenes.
Yeah. I mean, I learned to drive on those freeways, and so I'm an extremely defensive driver. John makes fun of me, and I'm like, look, this is how I learned to fucking drive. So, you got to be on your head on a swivel. You're always defensive when it comes to this kind of driving. So, especially because, some rape van could pull up behind you and chase you off the freeway.
You already brought it up, but in defense of the fiddler, the freeway fiddler, those women were honking his ass off and they could have just easily gone around.
Yep. I'm like, he's targeting you, not just because you're a woman driving alone, but also because you're honking. So
it made me start thinking of Joel Schumacher's Falling Down. Like, is the freeway fiddler defense? Like, is he, could this work as a double feature? He's going through what Michael Douglas went through. Yeah. And with that, like the stunt work is great. It's going to be great with Needham in there. I especially liked the scene where I think it's one of the victims is going to pick up her sick son from school. The freeway fiddler gets in front of her, hits the brakes, and she gets attached to his hitch.
Yeah.
And she's like, he's basically just, towing her, and great explosions in that, great cops being, blown up and thrown off motorcycles. Great stunt work, which we'd expect from Needham.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know I had mentioned when I made this pick, I called it a giallo on wheels. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people get upset when they hear the term giallo thrown around, like for thrillers, especially like American.
I know,
thrillers.
but you're putting it in a framework for people to understand, like the elements that are. I would never call it a giallo,
right?
Of course not. I'm not. Like we know that it's a fucking TV movie with like stunt cars and stuff.
I think it works though. I felt like there's a lot of similarities, even with like I kept thinking of Bird with Crystal Plumage.
Yeah,
because you have a protagonist that's kind of going down this like wild goose chase, and she's interviewing like the car club people.
Yeah.
And she's talking to the psychological like evaluation from Dr. Rita Glass about the fiddler. And there are all these like different kind of talking heads. Like it's really leading her nowhere. And it reminded me of all the characters in Crystal Plumage.
And I don't disagree that there's a lot of elements that you could say are just straight out of a giallo, especially the what the fuck ending, because we'll get to Lance's,
the black gloved.
We'll get to Lance's whole thing about no one's going to guess the killer, because
which you cut out of last episode.
I did,
which is funny. I did say something. I'm going to say it right here.
Say it.
I said, if you can guess the killer, I said, be honest. I will send you not only $100 cash in the mail, stamped, but an Unsung Horrors pin. We'll throw this right in the middle of the episode so nobody hears it, but
you have to, yeah, and you have
but
to
you cut it.
Yeah, I did, because I was like, Lance, come on.
And you hadn't watched Death Car yet. I was very confident in that statement.
I believe in you, but I believe in our regular listeners. But the reason I cut it was because I didn't want somebody like 5 years down the road being like, well, I need $100. I'm just going to message them and tell them that I guessed it. Like, that's why I cut it out.
That makes sense.
I have little faith in people. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, you drove on the 405.
Exactly. Like, I am a defensive podcaster and defensive driver. So yes, I do those elements though. Like I agree. Those are all very giallo-esque, and it does remind me of a lot of it. But like, I would never actually call it that and put it in that genre.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, it shares a lot of the tropes. I mean, there's the red herrings too, obviously, which most thrillers have. But George Hamilton is made from the very beginning to be the freeway fiddler, which is the best name ever, by the way.
I mean, is he though? Because I feel like if you're going, I mean, not the obvious one was the police lieutenant. Because he's angry at women. He's like, oh, well, like, he's like the victim shamer of like, oh, well, they had like 12 moving violations, so it's their fault. And so I was like, oh, if he really, spoiler, people, if he really was the killer, then it would be like, oh, well, he's mad because like, they can't, it's basically like the women can't drive thing.
Yeah.
And
the blaming and the mentality of him, of his perspective of women drivers is terrible.
And then if you're going to go for the, like, this person showed up like once or twice in the movie.
Yeah.
And we're just going to throw like the curveball at you at the end. It was like, it was this guy. It's going to be the other reporter who tells her like, oh, you're going to need help with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's that guy, whose name I don't remember.
I thought that too. Yeah. He just kind of pops up. I think the focus is on George Hamilton because he's always like giving looks and like he gets angry too at her every so often. But the ultimate red herring is Abe Vigoda. As soon as he popped up, I was like, that's your fucking guy. Like, why is he here?
Yeah.
He obviously like owed CBS or Needham a favor or something, playing some horny patient.
And speaking of Bird, so John was like, when I brought up the whole, like, what you said about, like, you won't figure out the killer thing, John was like, oh, I actually haven't even been trying to think of, like, who the killer is in this. I've just been, like, absorbed in the film. And I'm like, actually, yeah. Like, I mean, I had your thing in my head. So I was. But he was like, maybe it's a woman. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's, like, the older broadcaster woman or,
Right.
you know, somebody. I was like, maybe it's the fucking blind landlady at the end. I was like, it's her. Like, who
Oh, I
else do we
loved
have
her.
left?
She was one of my favorites. Mrs. Shield, I think was her name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's played by Harriet Nelson from The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet.
Mm-hmm.
She was great in it.
Yeah.
I kept thinking that too. Like even in my notes, I said like, you know, him or her being the, you know, referring to the killer,
Yeah.
but you do see him popping on gloves. You know, it's a man for the most part.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
again, that's kind of a giallo trope where you don't know it's a man or woman.
yeah, that's true. So I read Jennifer Wallace's write-up of this in Amanda's book, Are You in the House Alone? The TV movie compendium. And she talked a lot about how like the timing of this was when the Women's Liberation Front was starting to gain some steam, where women owning their own car even was like a big thing. And you mentioned it, like all the women in this are like really strong female characters. Like even the mom who's going to go pick up her son.
Yes.
She's like working with some tools and shit.
Yeah, like
she's got,
carpentry
like,
or something.
Yeah. And so I think like there's very much this element of this being a, you know, like a rape movie in another sense. Like he's chasing and terrorizing women only in a really safe way for a TV movie. There's a lot of talk about the victim, like even the first girl who gets chased by the fiddler is like, I'm the first victim when she's talking about her audition that she's going to.
Yeah, Barnaby Jones.
Yeah.
Audition, yeah.
And then there's like, she gets shamed later by, like, I think it's probably the lieutenant who's like, well, she's an actress. She's probably just exaggerating this whole thing and like making a big deal to get some attention and get some roles for herself kind of thing. But yeah, I did really quickly want to read Jennifer Wallace's write-up of this. Not the whole thing, but we'll skip the summary. Death Car isn't your usual women in terror film. Up against the fiddler is the KXLA news reporter, Jan Clausen, who is keen to prove both her own independence and her professional worth after separating from her husband. As reporter for the rival station, Ray, her husband, or ex-husband, is clearly threatened by his wife's developing career. So you have one feminist element there. Telling her not to make a crusade out of her search for the fiddler and suggesting that she may as well resign, go home, and be a good little girl before she gets fired by her station managers. Jan is having nothing of it, spurred on by the messages of the Women's Liberation Front, who were gaining ground in the U.S. at the time the film was made, and are directly referenced in a television interview in which a spokeswoman aligns increasing car ownership with greater freedom for women. This is essentially a feminist film, though it may have been advertised on the strength of its spectacular car crashes and the search for a serial killer. It's relatively slow-paced. The opening scene, looking down at a complex freeway system from above, is particularly uninspiring. The real interest lies in the messages the film contains, with the attacks on women's cars seemingly analogous to rape. That the crimes are motivated by sexual frustration is suggested by a psychiatrist, Gloria Strouk, interviewed by Jan, and the blacked-out windows of the fiddler's van evidently serve a voyeuristic purpose, allowing him to watch without being watched in turn. The incompetence of the police, there's another giallo trope, is frequently highlighted. One issues a ticket to a woman caught speeding in her attempt to escape the fiddler, and the classic defensive responses to rape are adapted accordingly. Women can help themselves by not making themselves a candidate for the fiddler. So that was like one example of, well, just don't drive on these freeways. It's like, did you know how hard it would, if I have to take a different freeway, it's going to add 60 minutes to my fucking commute. No, like I need to take that freeway. Let's see. The testimony of a surviving victim is questioned in light of her career as an actress, and local women, Jan included, begin taking defensive driving classes. So yeah, it's one of the sort of, I wouldn't call it a rape revenge movie because it's not like these women are set out to get revenge on the man who's running them off the road and all that, but it has a lot of those beats of it. And I definitely agree. This is a very feminist film where it's like these women are being blamed for something and being told like to be put back in their place. And then you have like, who seems to be the most macho man that you could possibly imagine, Hal Needham, directing it, playing a cameo in this film as someone who's helping these women gain their independence. Like, here's a way, like teaching them how to this sounds shitty, but drive like a man kind of thing. And I think it's great for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I do think, because between every scene of like the freeway fiddler, stalking and killing these women on the freeway, you might have Jan in the office or she's talking to her ex-husband, and it usually ends with her saying like, no, I'm not going to do what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just, you're always reminded, at least I was, like how kind of a kick-ass protagonist we have here.
Yeah.
I really like her role in this.
Yeah.
I do like how in that review, I think you said it was blacked out glass or, tinted glass. I like how they call it in this one-way glass, which I've never heard of before. Like one-way, I've heard one-way glass, but never as referring to a car as tinted glass. And that's probably something, it's in everyday life now. Like most cars come with it, but back then it was like you had to get it done. So one thing that really interested me was when Jan starts kind of going after the car makers. And how they advertise and sell their cars and glamorize speed and recklessness, comparing their car models and naming them after wild animals.
Yeah.
It's, it made me think of like, the NRA and gun nuts and stuff. I don't think it compares by any means. Like, are gearheads as bad as like gun nuts? No, but it was a very interesting like thing to just kind of sit and think about, because they do glamorize like, this has, 46 horsepower and goes 120 miles per hour. Like, they really sell breaking the law. There's no place where you can speed like that in a car. It's completely unnecessary.
Right.
Like, a lot of the guns that are out there. So it was a very interesting take that this was popping up in the late 70s.
Yeah. And she mentioned during one of her, I think it was her last broadcast before she got fired, where she was talking about men are being encouraged to use their weapon through advertising. And if you think about it, granted, I only see commercials on Tubi, so I don't know what's happening out in the real world. So sorry, y'all, if this is wrong, but there's a lot of car ads on Tubi. I don't think I've ever heard one that is voiced by a woman.
That's true.
Think today it's still like, Ford, horsepower. I don't know car words. I don't tires and oil change.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big like gearhead. I like cars. I like watching movies from this decade too, because the car models are beautiful. Yeah. You see a lot of this on the road, like Dodge and Mustangs.
I could watch Burt Reynolds speed down the fucking Appalachian Mountains, like in that fucking whatever kind of car it is, any day. Like it's a hot thing. Like Steve McQueen. Like I love watching it, and there's something to be said about that, because there is a sexualization of that.
There is. It's men get boners for everything. But when you talk like a lot of men, when you're talking about a car, like looking at an engine, that's why car shows and swap meets are crazy, especially like in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm sure it's all over. I know it's all over the country, but I would used to go to swap meets, to go camping and stuff with Sarah's parents, who are big gearheads. And like a lot of the guys would lose their minds looking at cars. And I'm like, okay.
I love looking at like old.
It's a work of art.
Like 50, like I think but I'm not like looking under the hood. I'm just because
these guys are.
I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm like, this is a bunch of tubes and wires and metal and makes it go. Woo.
Yeah, and there's a lot of country music at these swap meets. So this bluegrass thing, the mad fiddler had me thinking like, what does it represent? I thought maybe, Deliverance is so well known for its dueling banjos. Does it indicate that the driver might be some crazy backwoods guy? Like, hey, get off my roads. This is my space. You're invading my space.
So this is a far-fetched guess, but LA is very non-country. And so I think that's just further establishing him as being an outsider. Because, when she goes to visit all at, like the auto shop, on that lead, which is a weird scene.
I love that. That felt like crystal plumage to me.
It did. No, it was great, but it was weird. And they were like, he just kind of kept to himself. He was weird. He didn't really talk to anyone. And that to me, I was like, okay, he's the outsider. He's like the country boy in LA. It's like, you don't fit in. That was probably part of his motivation, where he's like, he's in a strange place. I don't think he's from LA if he's listening to like, fiddle music or whatever. So I think that was part of just establishing him as more of an outsider.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that car club scene that you just mentioned is one of my favorites because it starts off with Jan getting out. You know, she receives this anonymous call, or no, it's not anonymous. It's Bobby Hill.
Yeah.
That's my purse. But she goes in and it zooms in right away to a guy's tattoo that says "Born to Speed." It's like, oh, this rules. And then everybody in the club, they're like all kind of shown as tough guy, but they're all sweet dorks when they start talking.
Yeah.
Even like when Bobby's talking to Jan, Sid Haig comes up and he whispers in his ear and then Bobby says, "Do you want a soda or something?"
Yeah.
Like he walks over, he's like, "Offer a drink." Come on, man. What are you doing? It's so sweet. I love that scene so much.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorites in this?
I think it's definitely that. I thought what was funny was, you have the first sort of woman getting run off the road as the actress, and then the second one who gets burned over 60% of her body, and like the mom. But then in the middle of that, there's like this murder montage. So like they skip over all these victims, but they're like, well, here's their crashed cars. Like
there's one scene like it. I mean, it is a montage. There's like, I don't know, they might cram 4 accidents in there, but there's a lady being put into the stretcher and she has her boot just laying on her chest. Like, don't forget her boot. Throw her in the ambulance.
The end is probably like the end stunt is probably one of my favorites because I was like, oh, sick, the fucking van on fire. And, but then I was like, wait, so it's just the guy on the mailing label?
Yeah. Who knows? Is it John Evans who was, she was given a magazine and led down this wild goose chase.
Yeah.
We don't know.
And
that's what I love about the ending. I absolutely love the ending. I know it'll piss a lot of people off, which I fucking get.
It happened, and like at first I was like, wait, what? And then I was like, movie, thanks. Yes. Because like the end stunt, it was like you knew that at some point she was going to have to use the defensive driving skills that she learned from Needham's character, and that's probably one of my favorite scenes is when he's in it, because goddamn, if that man is not just, he could just charm the pants off of it. Me anytime. They don't even need to be off. My pants are already off. So
he's fantastic. That's one of my favorite scenes too, where you don't know that's Needham. It just cuts to a scene where she's being chased and it turns out to be a training scene. And he's like, she's real frustrated, but he's so sweet. He's like, "Nah, let me tell you what you did right. Like, you did a lot of things right. You got between the tree and the drive." Like he's very. I was like, I want to learn from Needham everything.
Yes.
Like,
teach me about life. Teach me how to climb trees. That's what he used to do before he was a tree trimmer, and so he learned to like scale trees and stuff. And like that's where his like stunt work sort of originated from that, and like his time in the Army as a paratrooper. But
I need to read that book because he like you said, he's just captivating, and he's a persona that you just want to learn more about. His charisma is so
it's off the charts.
It is. And
I'm like,
how he's not an actor, like how he never was a huge actor is. I get it, I guess, but he's a stuntman.
He should have loaned some of his charisma to Michael Dudikoff.
Oh my God.
Just off topic.
He would still be dead to watch. That guy is just energy sucker. He's just, ugh.
Oh, also, I did look up the mailing label, the actual address.
Oh, on the magazine?
Because I was thinking, I was like, maybe there's like some kind of like in joke on that. And no, it's not a real address. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I figured, they did the whole 555 number. So like, of course, it's not a real address. But I was like, I wonder if there's like some kind of in joke. Like maybe that was like, one of the stuntman's houses or something like that. But it's not a real
car
address.
dealership or something.
It's something, yeah. But
yeah,
anyway.
what I did like though is when she starts kind of narrowing down on who the killer might be, and she goes over to his apartment at that address, and instead of like centerfolds of naked women all over the wall, it's just vans and cars just plastering the wall, and like, this guy's insane. Look at him, and it's like, no, this is a fun movie. Like you said, going down Needham's filmography is what really made this fun.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, double feature pick. What are you going to pair with Death Car on the Freeway?
I think there's like a few ways you could go. Maybe one where like the killer isn't fully revealed, like Town That Dreaded Sundown. Or you could go just like car or road horror, like Christine, or even The Hitcher maybe. Road Games came to mind. honestly, I'm just going to be lazy and pick like the most obvious choice, and that's Duel, 1971. Yeah, well, I would say one of Steven Spielberg's best movies, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a fuck about Schindler's List. Sorry, I just don't.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it once, and I should watch it again.
But yeah, Duel, you have like the 18-wheeler terrorizing. I think the 18-wheeler sort of fits in the whole Needham universe anyway, since we talked about Smoking the Bandit. You never see the driver's face in this, and any reason to watch Dennis Weaver in something is pure joy.
Yeah.
Everyone watch Cocaine 1 minute.
Please, yes. That's
the best movie. I love it.
So good.
So yeah, I'm just gonna go with Duel. I know it's the obvious pick,
good.
but it works. So
yeah, I was thinking again, like, you could go with the killer vehicle route, like The Car from 1977, which is boring. It's a pretty boring film.
I don't like that one either. Thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. I thought, if you want to do like a Shelley Hack in a completely different role, just to kind of showcase her acting talents even more. Blind Fear, I do recommend people watching.
I think a Hal Needham double would work perfectly too for something like this.
Yeah, just with the stunts alone and the car chases. I think Falling Down would fit in because you can kind of, he's the Freeway Fiddler in some regard. But I'm going to go with another made-for-TV horror/thriller called Wheels of Terror from 1990.
Oh, I've never seen this.
It's good. It's directed by Christopher Kane, who directed Young Guns, one of my childhood favorites. But it's about a woman named Joanne Cassidy plays a bus driver, and there's a creep driving around town, and he's picking up young girls. He's molesting them, and he's murdering most of them. He's starting to kill them. And like I think there's an eligible child kill in here because they show one dead child who was the best friend and in the same grade in school of Joanne Cassidy's daughter, who they specifically say she's 12 years old.
Okay.
And that's your cutoff, right?
12. Yeah.
12. So
okay.
I think the dead child shown is 12 years old.
Okay.
But Joanne Cassidy, she's this bus driver, and this guy's driving around, kidnapping and killing young girls. And she actually sees her daughter being kidnapped by this Dodge Charger. And she's in her bus, so the chase is on. There's chasing, and her bus happens to have a race car engine in it, so it can hit 110.
Oh, okay.
And obviously, there's an end chase. It leads to an explosive finale. It's very stranger danger. Kids stay away from strangers. Don't get in cars. It's also pretty slow.
Okay.
Like literally half the movie's in slow motion.
Oh.
And the car chases are in slow motion, which is very counterproductive.
I know.
But it weirdly works. It's like this dream logic.
Is there an alien? Because I'm looking at the poster.
No, yeah, the poster is very like the Wraith, like the car. The thing is, you'll never guess who the killer is.
Again?
And I think that's what that poster might be hinting on. Maybe there's a supernatural element. I think there's even like a skull in the clouds.
Yeah, a skull in the clouds and like green headlights, so it looks like some kind of alien spaceship car.
Yeah, okay. So it's an okay movie. It's better than The Car. I think I gave it 2.5 stars, but it's a case where you never, all you see is the black clothes.
Okay.
You're not going to guess who the killer is. But yeah, this is I think it'll work well with Death Car. I'd like to imagine too that the driver in Death Car got out before the van exploded.
Maybe.
And this is him like 11 years later.
Oh, okay.
Or her.
Sure.
Or perhaps the driver in Death Car had a son who grew up and wanted to be like their dad.
There you
go. Boom, here you go. Wheels of Terror. Check it out. All right. That was fun.
Yeah.
Cue the Shawgust soundbite.
All right, next month, it's Shawgust. And really what that means is both of the films that we're going to be covering are Shaw Brothers films, Shaw Brothers horror movies specifically, or at least having the horror movie tag on it, or being horror adjacent, just close enough. And for our listeners, we encourage you to watch as much Shaw Brothers movies as you possibly can. We have a channel in our Discord. We just had a bunch of new people join us for that reason specifically. So jump in there. There's a link in show notes. Share what you're watching. Get recommendations from folks. I know a lot of the Shaw Brothers movies are kind of difficult to find and stream. especially the horror ones, but there's folks in there who can help you find some stuff to watch too. So first up for our first Shawgust episode, we are going to be talking about a movie that we have actually mentioned in previous episodes. We've both seen it before. And in the vein of Portrait and Crystal, this one moves at 100 miles an hour and is absolutely insane. We're going to be talking about Bloody Parrot from 1981.
Oh, yes.
Directed by Hua Shan. This is more wuxia or martial arts than horror, as it's about an expert swordsman who's on the trail of a thief who stole a treasure that was intended for the emperor, but it includes many horror elements, including witches, demonic possessions. I think there's a vampire or two in there. I don't quite remember, but I remember loving this, and I can't wait to rewatch it. This one rarely is actually on YouTube. We'll put a link to that in our show notes and on Discord. It has 489 views on Letterboxd. Yeah, and like I mentioned, this one's a lot like Portrait and Crystal with its pacing. Strap in for a wild one. You're going to lose track of characters. Just accept that, know that going in.
Yeah.
So many jump in at any random time. So just expect that and have some fun with it. And welcome to Shawgust.
Yes. It's been a long time. I've been waiting all year for you.
All right. If you're not already, you can follow this podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors. You can follow me on Letterboxd and Instagram and Twitter at Hex Massacre. I do still have about 40 or 50 copies of the book left. I haven't put up the damaged ones for sale yet, so there's another 20 or so of those. But there is a link in show notes to where you can purchase a copy of the book. Additionally, if you are in the New York or Philadelphia areas, I will be there for screenings on Friday, August 23rd. I'll be at the Spectacle in New York for a screening of Run and Kill, 1993, the Category 3 film, which I was able to contribute a video essay to the Error 4444 release of that. And then the next night, Saturday the 24th, I will be at Philomoka for a screening of The Untold Story. Jesse from Diabolic DVD will be there. He'll have a table set up with tons of stuff for you to buy, including a curated table of movies with child death in them. So if you're in the area, I hope you can come out for that. Come say hi.
Yes.
Would love to see you there.
I'm kind of bummed. I'll be in Philadelphia August 30th, like a week after.
I'll be recovering from a little dental surgery I have to have. I'm sorry.
Lord, what a bummer.
That's okay.
Okay, and you can follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd at Schibi.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you back next episode for Shawgust.
Woo!
Bye.
Freeway.